La 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 la. You need me to keep doing this, right, Jacob? Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Good evening. Well, I want everybody to know we haven't really begun yet. When we begin, we're going to give like a 3, 2, 1. You're on. That we are going to be videoing these now, and they'll be available later. It means a couple days after they happen. I hope, yes. Although I'm going to look into Vimeo. I don't know if anybody knows anything about Vimeo. Vimeo is a little bit less, what's the word I'm looking for? No, political. Yeah. Vimeo is just like, as long as it's not, gross and raunchy, they'll run it. YouTube is doing censorship of people that they don't agree with, just like the other big names are. Not that I know of. My wife has done her best, but that hasn't worked yet. Would you be willing to do me a favor and shut that door? The inner door there. Is it all right? You got it right? How's that? Not yet. I'll let you know. Hi. Right now I have 3, but it's early. But we are going to go ahead and begin, and you guys that are here early, you get all of the glory of hearing all of it, right? Right. All right. So we're going to begin, and I'm going to let a couple more people into the room here. Let us pray. Father, here we are, and we're beginning again, going all the way back into Genesis. And we ask that you just open your word to us tonight. Help our minds and our hearts be ready to learn and ready to hear. And as we really dig in together into your word in Yeshua's name. Amen. We have been doing this 1 year, and I think that we may have done it one other year, but I don't really remember. I think we just hit on and off a little bit, but last year we began in Genesis 1 and went all the way through. We missed a couple weeks, only a couple weeks, and so I hope we're not going to miss. Right, we met in one of the little rooms, and so here we go. Now we're going to do it a little. We're going to do something is going to be new tonight. Are you ready, Jacob? Okay, you can go ahead. Something is going to be new tonight to a lot of you guys. What I'm going to ask is that let's get through all of the material. My goal is to be able to do that in about 1 hour. Okay, so I'm going to zip through, and you may get a little bit of a fire hose, like, whoa, hold on, I'm getting hit. But everybody, just if you want to ask a question, just write it down, basically so you can remember what you want to ask, and then we will do those at the end. Okay? So I don't know if it's going to work, but we're going to do our best. And we'll... Hi, Rita. No, we're going back to the very beginning. We're beginning tonight with Genesis 1:1. Was there something set out for tonight? Yes. Did you get it? If you didn't get it, and Rita and for others, because it happened to somebody else, they already let me know that for whatever reason, sometimes it goes into your junk mail. So you got to look at both. And my goal, it's a goal. My goal is to get everything out by Wednesday morning. Sometimes it'll be earlier. I hope that it won't be later, but sometimes things happen during the week that I need to deal with, and then, you might not get it. So, yes. The only notes that I have are the ones that I put online. I don't have any other ones available because they're already gone, I think. Sorry. Okay. All right. Here we go. You will notice there's a word in the beginning of your notes that is not an English word. That is the word parashat. That's a Hebrew word that means reading. All right? So the reading, and as we go through, you're going to notice that all the readings are named. All right? They are named the Hebrew word or words that begin the reading. Okay? So in this reading tonight, Genesis 1:1 is where we begin, and that word in Hebrew that begins Genesis 1:1 is the word, what? Bereshit. All right? Bereshit. Or in English, Bereshit. But in Hebrew, R's are ra. Okay? They're not ra. They're in the back. They're like bara. Bara. So we'll learn that later. So every week, we're going to do a very little bit of Hebrew. Enough that you're not going to get overwhelmed, but maybe by the end next year, you'll know more Hebrew than you began with. All right? We're going to begin tonight with 2 letters and one word. All right? The letters, and by the way, remember, whenever you're reading Hebrew, you read right to left, not left to right. And people, say, well, then Hebrew's backwards. No, English is backwards. All right? Since Hebrew was most likely the original written alphabet and language on earth, then everything that doesn't line up with that is backwards. Okay? You all right with that? Okay. So the letters, I'm going to write them on the board here. And if you have the notes, they're in your notes. Letter 1 is known as the Aleph. And you make it by making a line. Okay? And then down at the bottom here, you make a little thing that goes up. And down at the top here, you make a little thing that goes down. Okay, so that's the Aleph. Now, if you are lazy, all right, you can always do it like this. Okay? Because there is really not another Hebrew letter that looks exactly like that. But really, if you want to make it right, it's a line, and then a line going up, and then a line going down. That's the letter Aleph. Okay? The letters that we are going to learn are all consonants, not vowels. If we're going to learn vowels, that'll be later. Some people think the vowels are easy. I do not think the vowels are easy. The vowels are a bunch of dashes and dots, and they have names, and basically you'll remember the words, and you'll be able to read the words even if you don't know the vowels. Okay? Now, Aleph, the letter Aleph, either makes no sound, okay, it's just a silent letter, or it makes the ah. Okay? Usually it's silent, the letter Aleph. Now, this is known as either modern or biblical Hebrew. So like if you go and you buy a Hebrew Bible, these are the letters that are going to be in there. If you go to Israel, these are the letters that are going to be everywhere in Israel. Okay? And so for us, this is going to be known as modern or biblical Hebrew. But there's another Hebrew that's older. Okay? It's an ancient language. And it's a language that was made with lines and pictures that's a little bit like what you've heard with, what is in Egypt, hieroglyphics. okay? But hieroglyphics is a language where they'll have a picture and it means a whole idea. In Hebrew, every picture has an idea, but it's a letter as well. Okay? So the more you know about the ideas of the letter, the more you know the language and what is being brought out when you read the language. Okay? So the ancient letter, and I'm not a good artist, but I will do my best. The ancient letter Aleph looks like the head of an ox or a bull, something like that. And, you can look at that and go, well, I can get how that would morph into this other letter. But if it's an ox, or, what do you imagine when you imagine the head of an ox? Have you ever gone hunting and hunted a bull, like a bull moose or a bull ox? I don't know. I guess you can hunt musk ox if you're on the island. But what it means is it means a strong leader. Okay? It's the head of an ox, and it's strong and it's big. Okay? So that letter, Aleph, means a strong leader. Okay? You with me? The next letter is the letter Beit, and you make it just like that. Draw a line, bring it down, bring it over, put a little thingy on the bottom. Okay? Beit. It is almost like the number 2, almost. Okay, now, in the ancient language, by the way, Beit makes the sound either p, like a boy, or v, like very. And the only way you know which is either you got to memorize it, the words, or it's going to have a little dot in the middle. If it has a dot in the middle, it's a b. If it doesn't have a dot in the middle, it's a v. All right? You got it? So it's going to be easy, and we're going to go very slow. Now, the ancient picture of Beit is something like that, all right? There are other ways that is drawn, but what is to be is a house. It's a house. And it can either mean house or it can mean something like in. Because what do you do in a house? You go in to the house. So it has the idea of a house. All right? So this is the modern Bible Hebrew, and this is the ancient language. All right? This is known not only as the ancient language, but it's known as pictograph, because it is a picture of something. That's all the letters we're going to do tonight, okay? But we are going to do one word, because with these letters, there's a word. There's more than one word, but there's a word you can make, okay? And it's Aleph, right to left, Beit, without the dot. Now, how would you pronounce that word? Av. Somebody else is joining, so I'm going to let them into the Zoom. Okay, Av. Now, what does Av mean in Hebrew? Think of Avraham or Avram, father. Okay, so the word Av is father in Hebrew. So there you go. Now you know Hebrew. Go to Israel, and you can look around and use at least one Hebrew word. Okay? All right, now we're going to move right into the reading. And just a little bit of background on the reading. Okay? What is Torah? What do I mean when I use that word? What do we mean here? And by the way, in Hebrew, usually the last syllable of a word is the one that gets the oomph. all right? If you were a Jewish individual that knew your Hebrew, it would be Torah, okay? Like hurrah. That's how I remember it, Torah. Okay, but what does that word mean? In the English Bible, usually you have it translated as law, right? You know, you read it all over, the law of Moses. Here's the law. But it doesn't mean law. There are laws in the Torah, but the word means teaching or instruction. And all it means is how you live your life. Okay, it's not that hard. Okay, so the word, and I have it in your notes. I have the biblical Hebrew in your notes in case you want to read it there. And the word Torah is from two other words. One of them is or, which means light. The other one is yare, which means shoot an arrow. And, by the way, hit what you're aiming at. Okay? Isn't that neat? The word that we use for God's instructions is the word that is light that you're aiming at. The light that you're aiming at. No wonder all over the Bible you read that his word, his Torah, is a light. Okay? And that's really the meaning of the word. Now, it means as well the 5 books of Torah, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. That's really what it means in Judaism. But if you really think about it, it's a lot broader than that, right? Because it's like all of God's word is his teachings and instructions. So if somebody were to ask, well, what is Torah to you? It would be, well, it's really Genesis all the way to Revelation, okay? But there's a weightiness about the Torah that we'll look at another night, okay? But that's the background. You guys all right? So here we go. Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Right underneath it in your notes, I have the Hebrew. And I have it not only as the Hebrew letters that you read right to left, but you've got English letters that read left to right, because that's how we read English. What this is known as, those English letters down there below the Hebrew, what that is known as is a transliteration. That's when you take a word in another language that has other letters and you write it in English letters so that if I hear you, it sounds like you're speaking Hebrew. Right? Got it? But you're really reading English. Okay? So if you want to read that with me, then you'll be reading Genesis 1:1 in Hebrew. It goes like this. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim va'et haaretz. See how easy that was? Anybody want to do it from memory? No? All right, we'll do it once again. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim va'et haaretz. Now here's something neat that you can do with Hebrew. You can do a lot of neat things. But one of the things that you can do is you can go and look at each letter of that first word, Bereshit, and you can go back to the ancient language, that picture language, and you can get the meaning of those letters, and you can look and go, well, gee, does that really mean anything? Okay, so the letters are there, and you got a beit and a resh and an aleph and a shin and a yod and a tav. And the pictures are right there by them, okay? Beit is a house. Resh is a head. Aleph is the bull or the strong leader. Shin is teeth, and it means press or consume or eat, sometimes destroy, okay? Yod is a hand or an arm that's doing work. It's a man's arm doing something, okay? And the Tav is a cross. Imagine that. And it means covenant. So those letters all together in the ancient language give you a meaning like the house of the highest, or the highest God, if you will be consumed by his own hand on a cross. So the gospel is in the word that begins the Bible, in the Hebrew. Now in the English, it's not there, okay? In the English, you're reading something else, but to me, that's amazing, okay? Now, okay, Bereshit bara Elohim. You've heard that word, Elohim. Elohim is a word that literally means mighty one, okay? El is the word that means mighty one. The Ohim on the end of it means it's a plural word. So the word God as Elohim is a plural word, but here's what is really neat, is the next word, bara, which means create, is not a plural verb. Okay, so you have Elohim, and this Elohim, that's a plural word, which might mean the plural of majesty or honor, or the fact that you're, thinking of the Godhead or whatever. All right, but this is one being that creates. Okay, and the word Elohim, by the way, is used for other gods in the Bible. The word El is used for other gods. So Elohim is not his name. Okay, Elohim is a title that means the mighty one. You're going to learn his name in the next chapter of Genesis, because that's when it's brought out. Okay? You guys all right? Okay, so back to these words in Genesis 1:1. Bereshit bara Elohim et. Et. Et ain't a word. In the Hebrew, that thing that you pronounced as et, it isn't a word. Even people who speak Hebrew will let you know that isn't a word. That's a mark that means this is the direct object of the main verb. Okay? But if you go back to the ancient language, I believe that it is more than that. Okay? So what you have here is with et, in the ancient language, you have the need for a new eraser. Can you guys see the board at all? Okay, good. You have Aleph, so there's the letter Aleph, and then you have the letter Tav, just like that, okay? Which would be strong leader covenant. But you have something else, because if you go into the book of Revelation, and by the way, Revelation is a very Hebrew writing. I know a lot of people argue about, well, all of the New Testament was originally in Greek. No, it wasn't. It was translated into Greek. Certain writings may have been Greek, but we know that Matthew was originally Hebrew. Okay, you're going to learn that Friday night. But Revelation was most likely Hebrew to begin with. The whole book is very Hebraic. And in it, you have these words. Now, these are the words in your English. Okay, Yeshua is the one speaking the words, I am the Alpha and the Omega. Well, what is that in Hebrew? I am the Aleph and the Tav. Okay? And then what you find out, this isn't in your English Bible. There's one English Bible that has the Aleph Tavs in it throughout what you know as the Old Testament. Okay? But the rest of our English Bibles, we don't even have it in there. But wherever that mark is, Something is going on that leads you to the Messiah, really. Okay? And right here in the very beginning of Genesis 1:1, it is smack dab in the middle of the verse. Okay? The verse is made up of 7 words. And right in the middle of the 7 words is the Aleph Tav. Well, isn't it interesting that in the temple and in the tabernacle, they were to make a menorah. A menorah was a lamp that had 7 lights, and the one in the middle is known as the shamash, which is the servant lamp. And all of the other lights would get their light from that middle light. Wow, here it is in word number 1 in Genesis 1:1. All of that in Hebrew, which I think is amazing. God of the covenant is Aleph Tav. Okay. Now, one more thing to learn tonight in order to help us with our digging in, and some of the things that you're going to learn and some of the things that we're going to hear are not in normal Christianity. Okay? They may be ideas that are from rabbis. They may be ideas that are Jewish, and that doesn't mean they're bad or they're wrong. Okay? Remember, Jesus is Jewish, right? Okay? So it'd be good if we had a little of that knowledge and that background mixed in to everything that we're learning, right? Okay? All right, there is a word or an acronym in Hebrew and Judaism that is PRDS. And how would you pronounce that? Purdus. Okay? What does it mean? It means that, and this is a Jewish Hebraic idea. There are many levels of understanding what you're reading in the Word of God. And in the Torah in particular, there are levels of meaning. In Judaism, they even believe that there might be as many as 70 levels of meaning, of ideas that are there. So it's like a gold mine. It's like you dig and then you can keep digging and then you dig more. Just like we just did with Genesis 1:1. It's 7 words. Okay? And it's not by accident that the Aleph Tav is right in the middle of those 7 words. Okay? So the Word of God is a miracle. It really is. It's a lot more of a miracle than I ever even realized. Now, these are the 4 general levels of Hebraic understanding of what you're reading in the Bible. Level 1 is known as Pshat, P-S-H-A-T, okay? And it means literal. Just what you read is what you read, okay? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. What does that mean? It means in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That's level 1. Level 1 is always right. What happens sometimes in Christianity is we go to another level, but we think that it deletes level 1. No, it doesn't. There is no deletion of level 1. What you read is, once you get the text right, then it's, what does it mean? Simple meaning. That's level 1. The next level is known as remez. Remez is a word that means hint, which gives you an idea that there might be a little reading between the lines that you can do there. Okay? We're going to look at one of those a little bit later when we look at Cain and Abel. All right? It's an alluded meaning. Okay? There are methods that are used in this meaning like numbers. Sometimes you've learned in Hebrew, the letters have numbers as well, kind of making something out of those numbers would be a remez level reading. We'll do that later, just for the jazz of doing it and going, wow, that's really interesting. Because certain names have certain numbers, and the numbers have meaning. Okay? The next level is the word darash. Darash. It's where you get the word midrash. Okay? That is like a homiletical or interpretive meaning. In other words, you look at something and you draw a meaning out of it in order that you can explain something else. Okay? There is a writer of letters in the New Testament that does this a lot. Can you guess who that would be? Yeah, Paul. He uses midrash a lot. And if you don't know that he's using a midrash, you're going to miss it. It's just going to go right over your head, and you're going to begin to make a meaning out of it that's going to twist what he really means because he's doing a midrash. He does it in Galatians, okay? He does it in Romans. He does it all over. And maybe we'll look at one of those later. Okay, and the last level is the one where I'm like, you got to watch it there. It's the sod, or secret level, where there's a mystical meaning. So I am not a very mystical guy, okay? So I don't get a lot of that, and there are groups in Judaism that go off into what word do I want to use and be nice? And what? A rabbi trail that goes into a world where you're like, I don't want to go there, okay? That's that level, and we're not going to go there, all right? But that gives you an idea of why you need to know a little bit when you go into reading the Bible. That does not mean that if you don't know any of this and you have a Bible that you're going to be lost. It doesn't mean that at all. But wouldn't you rather be able to open it up and dig down in and get the gold that's in there? Okay, so you're not just spending your whole life sitting there waiting for others to know about Jesus. Because in brief rabbi trail, in normal Christianity, everything is about one thing. Are you going to heaven or are you going to hell? Now, if I know that I'm going to heaven, or actually, if you want to get real about it, it's the new heaven and the new earth. But if I know that I'm going to be with the Lord forever, okay, and I have a long life ahead of me on earth, and I already know that, and that's all that it's about, then why am I even here, right? That isn't all that it's about. Remember Yeshua's words at the end of Matthew. Go and make what? Yeah, disciples. Those are those who read and dig, and they want to know. You're hungry because you want to know more. So that's what this is going to be about. Okay? All right, let's go back to Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The word created in Hebrew is the word bara. The word bara is only used of God in the Bible. There are other words in Hebrew that mean make, all right, but this idea of create is only used for God. Okay, it implies that nothing existed before Genesis 1:1 but God, Elohim. Okay, and that everything that isn't Elohim has a beginning. Okay, and this is, and one of the things that you're going to learn about Torah is it is given as an answer, if you will, to all of the other religious ideas that were floating around in the day. It's the beginning of writing out the idea of monotheism, that there's one God. And now there is a creation history that says there's only one. Okay, so, and as we're reading this, keep in mind, to whom were these words written? To whom were these words written? Bereshit bara. To whom? No, they weren't written to the whole world, not originally. They were written to Israel. When? Yeah, when they had come out of Egypt. Okay, so when they were out of Egypt and Moses went up the mountain and wrote the words and brought down the words, then they had these words. In the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. What are they learning? They're going to learn about who they are. Why? Because they've been in Egypt. They don't know who they are anymore. All they know is there's a bunch of gods in Egypt. All right? So, like, which God do you mean when you're speaking of this God? Okay? So, that's all. Genesis 1:1 brings all of that out, okay? All of the other early creation myths that were floating around, they have stories of the gods, and how the gods create is always via sex and violence. Okay? If you look at the other creation stories, excuse me, in the other religions, they're all about how this God had sex with that God, and they brought forth something else, and then they made humans, and on and on and on it goes. Okay? Something else that I want us to keep in mind is that the purpose of Genesis, in the book of Genesis in Hebrew, is Bereshit. It's the name of the whole book. One of the purposes of it is not in order to teach Israel science. Okay? Sometimes we go in there and we dig around and we're like, we want to get into all this, and it's like, you got to remember that really isn't the reason it was given. It was given so that they know who they are. Okay? So you'll hear a lot of arguments about how long a day was back then. And my answer is, I don't know. It says there was evening and there was morning one day. So how long does it take for there to be evening and morning? So we're not going to look at those arguments. We're not going to dive into them this year in this learning of Torah. It is about wisdom. It's learning wisdom about God and human beings and nature. And unlike all of the other creation ideas, all right, we remember that we do not worship nature. We do not worship trees or mountains. We worship the one that created trees and mountains. Did you know that throughout human history, it is normal that people worship nature? And they're doing it again. I mean, they've really been doing it again the last 30 years. All right, but it's not abnormal in those who don't have or believe in the Word of God. Okay? In Romans, Paul writes about those who worship and exchange the glory of the immortal God for an image, okay, in the form of mortal man or birds or beasts or creeping things. Okay, so that was going on even in Yeshua's day, and that was going on in Moses' day, and that's been going on since the beginning. Okay, all right, now we're ready to go to the second verse. So now we're gonna ask. I'm gonna shift up into third gear, and we're gonna go a little faster. Okay. Now the earth was chaos and waste. Darkness was on the surface of the deep, And the Ruach Elohim, that's the wind or breath or spirit of Elohim, was hovering upon the surface of the water. Those words in English, chaos and waste, you may have a different words in your Bible, okay? In Hebrew, it's tohu and vohu. Wow. Why do they rhyme? It's poetry. It's a Hebrew way of bringing in poetry, okay? One way is the rhyming of words. Okay, so in Hebrew, what you would hear is the earth, haaretz tohu vavohu. Okay, chaos and waste or emptiness. Now, another Hebrew writing form is known as parallelism. Have you ever heard of that? That's when you use two words to bring about one idea, okay? And that's what this is. And so it's poetry in that it rhymes and it uses parallelism because the idea behind all of it is it's empty or it's chaos, okay? So it wasn't... It had the earth and the heavens and the earth were there, but there was no form on the earth, and darkness was over the deep. Darkness is the Hebrew word just a minute, it's hard to pronounce. Choshek. And it doesn't mean the lights are off. Okay? It means lack of enlightenment, lack of knowledge. It even might mean bad or evil, okay, or chaotic. Because later, he's going to use the word darkness in Genesis 1 in Hebrew, and it's a different word, okay? So the darkness that you're looking at in the second verse is more deep than the idea of the lights are out, okay? What we're going to learn in Genesis 1 as we go on, and in all of Genesis, is that it's about more than creation. It's about one of God's main fundamental purposes in the universe. That is bringing order out of chaos. Same thing as you and me, okay? We are here, and one of the reasons we're here is that we might bring order out of chaos. Okay, next couple verses. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and God distinguished the light from the darkness. The word light is the word or. And it doesn't mean that light. It means illumination, enlightenment. Okay? It's something more than the light of the sun, which, by the way, had not been created yet. Okay? So this is the word or. All right? Now, how many of you know Torah class online? Tom Bradford. Okay, every now and then I'm going to be using some of his words and some of his ideas. But he writes about this light, this or, that it was also a type of light that did not come from a physical object. Okay, that's what I mean. It wasn't this light that is shining here. And down a little more he writes, further, because light is the opposite of darkness, and light is characterized by God as good, but darkness is not, we have a firm connection between the kind of light created here and its attribute of goodness. So what is God doing? God is making lines of separation which he does a lot in Genesis 1. Actually, he does it all through the Torah. Okay? For example, he divides darkness and light. Yep. He divides day and night. He divides the land from the sea. Ultimately, he divides good and evil. Yes? Okay? So, God is not always the great uniter. Sometimes he's the great divider. Didn't Yeshua even say something like, don't think I'm here to make everybody happy. Okay, then I'm going to bring everybody together. Okay, I'm here to bring division on the earth. He said that. Wow. Okay, Genesis 1:5. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and there was evening, and there was morning one day. That's after he makes the lights, right? There's evening, no, that's not yet. We didn't get to that yet, sorry. There's evening and there's morning one day. This is why in the Hebrew days, okay, the day begins in the evening. Unlike our days that begin at midnight, okay, in the Hebrew days it begins in the evening. This is why when we meet together on Friday night, we are meeting on Shabbat, because it begins with that evening. And that's another thing that'll help you when you're dealing with the days of how long the resurrection and all that was. One thing you got to remember is day doesn't mean morning to evening. It means evening to evening. Okay? All right. Then, now, we're gonna skip ahead. There's no way we can go over every verse because we'd be here for a couple days. All right? So we're going to skip down. God is going to create man. Okay, 1:27. God created humankind in his image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female. He created them. Okay, the word in Hebrew, image, is the word zelem, and it means shadow. Okay, so if you can imagine, I'm here, my shadow is down there. When I move, it moves. Okay, so human beings are made in order that we might move like he moves. It doesn't mean we look like him. It means that we act like him. That's what it means to be in the image of God. Being made in the image of God isn't just, something that wow, look, I'm human. I look in the mirror. It's the image of God. The image of God is when you do what is godly. You do the same things that God would do. Okay? And we learn in this verse that male and female are created in a distinct way. Okay? In other words, you're either a guy or a girl. Okay? Male and female. But here's what's interesting, is that it is God's nature is both. Okay? And you read about that in the Bible. If you read the prophets, even Yeshua's words when he's over Jerusalem and he goes, how long have I wanted to grab you under my arms like a mother hen? Right? Okay? So God is like a father and God is like a mother. But remember, God is not a man. Right? Okay. Now, he takes the man and the woman. God, verse 28, God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, fill the land and conquer it, and rule over all the animals, right? Okay, that means that the very first commandment in Torah is go have babies. Right? Usually when I ask, what is the very first commandment? It's don't eat from the wrong. No, that isn't. It's go have babies. Okay? And you are to conquer or rule or kabash in Hebrew, which means bring into or under subjection, like a king with an army who's going to go out and conquer the world. That's exactly what that means. Okay, that's why we're here. So when you hear people say, well, we're not here to take over the world. Well, yeah, we are. It is the goal, right? His kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. Now, we're not going to get there without him. That's for certain. But at least we're moving in that direction. I know you guys are dying to ask questions. We're going to see if this works. Okay? All right, moving on. By the way, one of the books that I'm reading in this year is written by Dennis Prager, and it's his Bible comments on the Torah. How many of you know who he is? Dennis Prager. All right, good. Almost everybody. So he writes, to make something of creation is our task as human beings. This is, in fact, the normative Jewish view. Human beings are partners with God in making the world. Neat. Okay, so we get into the second chapter of Genesis, and we read, then God blessed the seventh day and set it apart. That's what that word means, sanctified. Because in it he rested from all his work which he had created and made. Okay? So there's only one day that is holy. It is that day. It is the seventh day, which is Shabbat. And on that day, we are, what God did not do was milakah, which means work, and the idea is you're making, you're creating, you're producing something. That's what you are not to do on Shabbat. Okay? So how that works and looks in your house, I don't know. That's you and God. Okay? Oh. No, because if you do, everybody else is going to want to interrupt. And then what am I going to do? Shabbat. In Numbers. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. It was then. It isn't now. Now, what is it? You're going to enjoy the day and have a fire. In that day, what you're doing is you're gathering the wood in order that you might sell it to everybody else, because everybody needs firewood. And so I'm going to go and I'm going to get more because everybody else, nobody's out here today. Woohoo! I can make a lot of money today. And so you go out. That is what I think that guy was doing. So, okay, now, next, moving down verse 4. These are the genealogical records of the heavens and the earth when they were created, when Adonai Elohim made land and sky. A couple of things to notice and point out here. Okay, one is when you've noticed when you've read Genesis 1 and 2 that there's like a stop, and then it almost like it begins over again, right? Okay, that's exactly what that is. What that is Genesis 1 to 2, 4 is an overview of the whole creation of the heavens and the earth. Then now we're going to move into a little more detailed view of the making of Adam and the woman, okay, with the next section. All right? How are we doing? The other thing that happens there is, you notice in the version that I'm using, it says Adonai Elohim. Okay? If you have an English Bible that isn't one of the Jewish background Bibles, it would be the Lord God. Okay? That is the first use in the Torah of Yod-He Vav-He, which is the name of God, which we're going to learn a lot more about when we get to Exodus. Okay? And that's where it begins to be used in the writing. That doesn't mean that they were using it, but that's when it was used in the writing. Okay? Now, Adonai Elohim commanded the man. Commanded who? The man. Saying this, from all the trees of the garden you are most welcome to eat. But of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you must not eat. For when you eat from it, you're going to die. Okay? The next verse. Then Adonai Elohim said, it is not good for the man to be alone. Let me make a well-matched helper for him. Those ideas are connected. The idea of, I'm giving you all of this, you can have anything you want, but don't eat of that one. Now I'm going to make you a helper because it isn't good that you're alone. Okay, we'll go back to that in a minute. By the way, this is when God describes something as not good. It is not good that the man is alone. So he's going to make, in Hebrew, an edzer kenegdo. Those are from the words neged, all right, which is the word that means opposite, as in David's sitting there looking at me, and now I'm sitting here looking at you, and we're going to get right up by one another because we're opposite one another. So isn't that interesting? God is not going to make Adam a helper that's going to be right here next to him, but is going to be opposite him. Okay? And it's, so the well-matched is the word neged, which means facing and opposite. The word helper is the word edzer, which is from the root word azar, which means strength in order to surround and protect. Okay, now you have the little letters there of the word edzer in the ancient picture language. It literally means see the weapon of the highest. See the weapon of the highest. Okay, so you have a man. He's been given a commandment of what he can do and what not to do. Okay? But he's alone. So God says, it's not good that you're alone. So he's going to make him a helper who's going to be, in a way, connected to him, but is going to be opposite him, and who's going to be a strong weapon of God on the earth. So if you're a woman, don't get the idea that when God created you, he made you to be the nice little, yes, dear, I'll do whatever you tell me to bend over and that. But you learn that in some Christian churches, don't you? That is not how it is in Genesis. In Genesis, the woman is a mighty warrior. Okay? Now, we learn that the animals won't work as Adam's edzer kenegdo. Yeah, whenever I go through this and I teach on this, I watch husbands going, I knew that. I knew that. That's why it's been so hard. Anyway, Adam's edzer kenegdo. So what God does is God puts the man in a death-like sleep. He removes a piece of the man, and in the Hebrew, he builds a woman. He doesn't craft or make a woman, he builds her. I don't know why that's significant, but it is. He builds her, and then he builds her as Adam's edzer kenegdo, his helper, his strong helper. What is the woman designed to help the man do? That is one of them. But what is the main reason the woman's been given right here? To help the man keep the commandment. Here's the word I'm giving you. Now I'm going to make you a helper. Yes. Okay, it's almost as if she is the voice. And the idea is when the man goes away from walking in the ways of God, then the woman is going to be in opposition to him, and life is not going to be good. But when the man is hearing God's word and doing God's word, then the woman is going to be with him, and they get to live in a little bit of shalom together. But I remember C.S. Lewis wrote, God did not give us marriage in order to make us happy. He gave it to make us holy. I was like, well, I get that after 38 years. Okay, then at the end, by the way, this is why a man leaves his father and his mother and clings to his wife, and they will become one flesh. Now, both of them were naked, the man and his wife, and they were not ashamed. Next verse, but the Nahash, the serpent, was shrewder than any animal of the field that Adonai Elohim had made. Now, the Nahash, the serpent, by the way, that word literally means shiny, snake, brass, copper, enchant. Okay? So that's the serpent. Okay? Shiny, slick, wow, bright. Okay? And now we're going to have another one of those Hebrew poems, all right? Because the word naked is the word arom, that means bare. The word shrewder is the word arum, okay? So Adam and the man and the woman were both arom, but the Nahash was arum. Okay? It's like a play on words. Now, notice the words that happen between the woman and the Nahash. So it said to the woman, and every English version has a question here. Really, it isn't a question, it's a statement. Okay? God said, you must not eat from all the trees of the garden. Well, the woman said to the Nahash, of the fruit of the trees we may eat, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the middle of the garden, God said, you must not eat of it, and you must not touch it, or you will die. So the woman's answer looks like she's giving the serpent God's command, but she isn't. Is she? She added. Words are added to the original command, and those are the words that the Nahash is going to use it to set a trap for the woman. Because God's word wasn't don't touch it. It was don't eat it. Now, where she got those words, we don't know. It might have been Adam. Okay? It might have been her. I don't know. Okay? But what happened then, whatever it was, the woman believed it. Okay? Because here's how the trap worked. The woman reached and grabbed, and nothing happened. Well, I did touch it, and nothing has happened. So God lied. So I might as well eat it. But there's more going on there than that. Okay, it says in the verse 6, the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a thing of lust, a desire of the eyes, and that it was desirable to impart wisdom. So she ate it, and she gave it to her husband, and he ate it. So what did the serpent use? Hunger, appetite, looks, desire, and the brain. Logic. Okay? Prior to this, God and God alone was the one who determined good and evil. What the woman and the man did suddenly is basically by their actions said, we will be the ones who will determine what is good and what is evil. Bam, death. That is the way of death. And it's all around us in the world. This is why good and evil aren't what they were when you and I were growing up, are they? But it is now. Why? Because human beings have our God. That's what happened here, is they became gods when they believed and acted on the idea that they were going to be the ones who were going to determine what is good and what is evil, not God. Okay? And it began this death in them that was death in their relationship with one another and with God, and everything kind of spiraled there. All right? So then Adonai Elohim said, "Behold, the man is become like one of us, knowing good and evil." Okay, Prager writes, the moral message of the Torah, ethical monotheism, is God determines good and evil. Okay, so you can read the rest of that later. We got to move on. Okay, verse 24. And he expelled the man, and at the east of the Garden of Eden he had cherubim dwell along with the whirling sword of flame to guard the way to the tree of life. So we're going to get a little deep here. Okay? Genesis 3 is known as the fall of man. All right? And out of it has grown these doctrines in Christianity that are not in Judaism. Okay? One of them is the Doctrine of Original Sin. The idea of that is that because Adam and Eve did what they did, they handed down to us a fallen nature that is broken, and there's nothing you can do about it. Okay? That isn't what we read in Genesis. As a matter of fact, that idea wasn't even written about until a guy named Augustine, who wasn't even born till the 350 years after Yeshua. Okay? Are you with me? So what is the Bible idea and what is the Hebrew idea? It is that human beings are born innocent, but they have this proneness to evil. Why? Because God made you with free will. The moment he did that, he made a being that is able to go the wrong direction. And out of that comes the idea that you have a good nature and an evil nature. And that dilemma is with you, okay, all of your life as a human being. We'll learn a little bit more about this in a minute, okay? Thank God there's a way back to the tree of life that you eat from and live forever. Did you ever notice that? What are the angels guarding? They're not guarding the tree. They're guarding the way. They're guarding the road to get back there. And there is a road to get back there. By the way, this road to get back there, why are there cherubim there that are guarding this? Where else in the Bible are there cherubim? Over the ark. And what's the lid of the ark? It's the mercy seat where the blood is poured out that brings you back to the tree of life. And what's in the ark? The commandments, if you will, the heart of the Torah, which later on in the Bible is known as the tree of life. It's amazing how it all goes together. It really is. Okay, so, okay, now we're going to go move into the next chapter here that has to do with Cain and Abel. So it happened that Cain brought an offering of the fruit of the ground to Adonai, while Abel, he also brought of the firstborn of his flock and their fat portions. Okay, so Adonai looked favorably upon Abel and his, but on Cain's he did not, and Cain became angry. So why did Yahweh accept Abel and his offering and not Cain's? You can yell out an answer if you think you're right. Well, no. I'm glad that you brought that up because that's where we're going, okay? There are offerings in Leviticus that are not animals, that are absolutely acceptable to God, right? They're grain offerings, bread offerings, drink offerings. They're all spelled out in Leviticus. What was going on here is the word firstborn and fat, which means the best. Abel was bringing the best of what he had. What did Abel do? What was his job? He's a shepherd. What did Cain do? Farmer? Okay, so the idea is one brought the best, the other brought some stuff. Okay, so the one that just brought some stuff had a wrong heart about him. So his offering was not accepted. But God said something to him. By the way, in Numbers is one of the places where you read about bringing your best to God when you give him an offering. Here's what God said to him in verse 7. If you do well, it will lift. But if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the doorway. Its desire is for you, but you must master it. Okay? Have you noticed that when you do something good, it lifts you up? Then when you do something bad, it brings you down? Have you noticed that when you do one thing bad or evil, it's easier to do the next? It's kind of like lying. Okay? But have you noticed that when you do something good, it's easier to do the next? I mean, good and evil is one of the things that God gives us as a major distinction. Okay, now, here's where we get into that idea of original sin and a sin nature. Okay? Judaism teaches that because of free will, everybody is born innocent, but with two natures. Now, we're going to just, we're doing okay. We're going to dive into this, and I'm going to go over it, and you're going to get hit with the fire hose, and we can come back to it later. In the Hebrew Torah, there's what is known as jots and tittles. Okay? They're anomalies, where normally a word everywhere else is spelled a certain way, but in this one verse, it's not. Okay? There is an anomaly in Genesis 2 where we read that Adonai Elohim formed the man out of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. The anomaly is the Hebrew word that in here is formed, and it's the word yatzer. Yatzer. It's a yod and a tzayin and a resh. Yatzer. In the Torah, there's a double Y on the word yatzer. In other words, yod is the letter Y, so it's yod, yod. Everywhere else in there, it's just yod. Okay, but right there, it's a double yod. And the rabbis believe that the reason that it is that there are, from the word yatzer, formed, is where you get the word yetzer, which is your inclination, or how you are formed, and you are formed with two yetzers. The yetzer hatov, or the good inclination, and the yetzer hara, or the evil inclination. Your job in life is master it. And that's what God is laying out to Cain is, look, right now, you are not hearing the right voice. You're hearing the voice of the evil nature, and you must master it. So I really love the statement that Dennis Prager made about this verse, and that is the statement, yet you can be its master, is one of the Torah's most important statements. It means we have moral free will. That we can rule over our desire to do wrong is the most empowering idea in life. Is it? You don't have to do that anymore. You don't have to live that way. Okay? The only way that we can end bad behavior, right, is to recognize and believe that we can master it. Now, it really helps to have God's help in doing that, doesn't it? And to have his forgiveness for whenever we've blown it, which, thank God, we have. That's one of the beauties of what Yeshua did for us. Okay? Now, what happens? He doesn't master it. He kills his brother. Oh, the youth are back there. They're having a blast. And then God comes to him and asks, "What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood is crying out to me from the ground." Well, did you know literally in Hebrew it's not blood, it's bloods. The voice of your brother's bloods is crying out from the ground. Why is that? The Hebrew belief is that in every human being there is a world of generations. So when you kill one, you kill all the potential generations that are in that human being. This is one of the reasons why abortion is a bigger deal than people even think it is. This is why there is a saying in Judaism that if the one who saves an individual saves a whole world. Likewise, the one who kills an individual kills a whole world. So what he did was really bad. Now, you guys all have the notes, so we're going to skip down a little bit. And, we're almost done. Look at that. We made it. Okay? So when you read this, did anybody else, when you read about Cain and Abel, and you read about what happens when he murders his brother, then what happens? What does God do? He banishes him. Then does anybody have a light alarm going off in you right now? He banishes him. What happens in Torah when you murder? You die. Right? The one who sheds the blood of another, his blood gets shed. That didn't happen here. Why? He did. That's exactly what he did. Okay? He took Cain. Later on in Deuteronomy, you're going to read about these sanctuaries that were made so that the avenger didn't get the individual who murdered another. But what was it about the individual in Deuteronomy that murdered another that made it so that they didn't get the death penalty? Why were they allowed to go into a sanctuary? Because they didn't mean to do it. Okay, it was like it was an unintentional murder. Okay? However, when you go and you read later in the New Testament, you read that Cain was an evil, wicked man. Okay? And so it isn't like he was a good guy. But anyway, that's what happened. Now, I want you to read, when you can read it, this quote by Benner that's there, because it's really neat. But what we're going to end with is Genesis 5, which is the book of the genealogies. And this is really neat, because if you look at the meaning of the names in the list that are given in Genesis 5. Yeah, I do. And Evelyn, hi, Evelyn. Hi. That's okay. I know you're there, which is good. I'm glad you're there. Okay. Taking the names in Genesis 5 and the Hebrew meanings of all of the names, you get these words. Here's the names. Adam and what it means, and Seth and what it means. Taking them all together, you get mankind is appointed to feeble, frail mortality a fixed dwelling place. God, who is praised, comes down to instruct as a man sent forth to be beaten, smitten, and tortured, bringing rest, a quiet peace. That blows me away whenever I read that. It's like, whoa, there's the gospel again. So you got the gospel in Genesis 1 with the word Bereshit. You have the gospel when God clothes Adam and Eve and then guards the way back to the tree of life. You have the gospel right here in the names of the individuals in the genealogy. Now, questions. Yes, Susan. Go ahead, Susan. Oh, well, okay, all right. What was asked is go back to Genesis 1:1 and the word Bereshit and the strongest one, the house or the temple of the strongest one will be consumed, and basically he will lay down his life. That's what it means. What it means is the creator of the world is going to lay down his life for his creation. Yep. Which is exactly what Yeshua did. And we know that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. And we know in Colossians that everything that was made by him. So, wow. Good question. Yes, Tom, you have a question. Oh, okay. You got to have more. Anybody else? Yes. So I said, write them down. As you're going, write them down. Yes. The what? Okay, in Hebrew, there are letters that are added and subtracted when you add words. Okay? So, I don't know. That's a very good question. Of what? Oh, it's covenant. The cross. Covenant. Yep. Yes. Yes. Yeah, really good. A covenant light that we're aiming at. Okay? That's okay. Yes. Oh, that's an error. Yeah, sure. Well, yes and no. In Hebrew, there is none. Capital letters, there is none in Hebrew. It's all lower. Right. There is. Yes. Yep. Who's in? You're next. Oh, that's interesting. I don't know about that. I don't know about Noah's wife being a descendant of Cain. That might be. I'd have to look. It's good. Do you remember where you heard that? Was it a rabbi? Ah, in the Humash, which is written by rabbis. Yeah. Oh, they are. This is why I gave you the PRDS so that you could realize, just like, look, I'm just going to lay it out here, okay? Just like with me, Don't believe and take every word that I give you as like, oh, this is what the pastor said. No, you got to go look it up on your own, okay? I'm just a guy, just like you guys, okay? I'm a guy who reads a lot, okay? But rabbis they have ideas, and some of them you can bring in and go, yeah, that really helps. I get it. And I think Yeshua did that, okay? He didn't reject every rabbi. He was a rabbi. In a way, okay? He didn't reject every one of them. He rejected the ones that were leading them away from Torah. Those were the ones that he rejected. But you have like Nicodemus. Nicodemus was a rabbi. He's a leader in Israel. And Yeshua looked at him and, he was like, look, dude, you don't get this yet? You're a leader in Israel. You know about being born again and all that. Because being born again is not an idea that was originated with Jesus. Being born again is a very Hebrew idea. Whenever you went into the mikvah, it was like you were being born again. Okay, so your hand was up, Debbie. Yes. Yes. So there you go. Oh, that's another good one. I like that. Yeah, that's a good idea. That he didn't kill Cain because Noah was going to be from him. Yeah, now that gets into the whole idea of, it's like predestination and all of that. And, that is not a Hebrew idea because it isn't a Hebrew word. It's a Greek idea and a Greek word. Hebrews wouldn't use that word. You could ask, well, does God know everything? Well, of course he does. Well, how does that work? How do I know? Am I God? I don't know how it works. He's God. I'm not. That's more of a Hebrew view. The English view is, we got to figure this out. Okay, why? Because we're logical, we're linear. We got to figure him out. And God's, like, good luck figuring me out. Okay, Dana, because you haven't asked one yet. Time's up. Do they use the cross? No, they use the Zayin. The letter Zayin. The letter Zayin is the letter that means the instrument, literally, that tills the earth. Okay, then what? Yes. Oh, okay. Oh. Right. Well, it is a useful, what's the word? Element. Yeah. Yeah. It's good. You're making a mark. Yes. Yes. That is really neat. By the way, I wanted to hold up this book. We don't have this anymore, but you can order it online. If you want to learn a little more about what Hebrew letters are and what are behind Hebrew letters, this is a really good one. In His Own Words is the name of it. In His Own Words, written by L. Grant Luton, Luton. And there's another guy who runs a website known as Ancient Hebrew Research Center.org. His name is Jeff Benner. One of his quotes is in your notes. But he goes into all of these letters and all of these words and how the reason they got that word is when they went out into the field and they were plowing, he goes into all that. It's really neat. And you can order his work online at his website as well. Sean. Guarding. Yes. Oh. Well, yeah, one is there's no ark yet. Okay, the ark is where the cherubim are going to be, but that hadn't happened yet. Okay, and the idea if they ate of the tree of life, they would live forever, but they were sinful or whatever, that isn't a Hebrew idea. That's a Christian idea. The Hebrew idea is he's going to guard the way back because he's going to expel them out of there, and things are going to happen, but he wants to bring them back, okay? And in order to get them back, there's got to be a way to get back. So then that way is illustrated in the Mishkan with the ark and all of that. But then that way is in its fullness when Yeshua says, I am the way. Okay? Meaning I am the way back to the garden, back to the tree of life, back to where the Father is. And the good news is he guarded the way back so you guys can all get there. Well, it doesn't use those words. All it does is look. Yes, it is, because the words are, look, they are like us now, knowing good and evil, right? I mean, let's go there real quick. You guys are not in a hurry, right? Okay? Genesis, because, you could be right. There's always that possibility. My wife knows that somebody else other than me could be right. So this is the end of Genesis 3. Behold, the man become like one of us, knowing good and evil. So now in case he stretches out his hand and takes also the tree of life and eats and lives forever. Yes, but it doesn't give you the reason why. That's what I'm getting at is if the reason why they're going to reach out and grab it and live forever is because they're wicked and evil now, that's not there. So I get it. We're each right. Half right. I gave you all I know about that one. But it does. Yes. Okay, now that's a really good question. That's all I got. That's a really good question. Guarding the way back is different than preventing entrance. Right? Those are two different ideas. One is, you ain't getting by here. The other is, we're going to guard this, okay, so that it's always here. So there's always a way back. So the idea is there's always a way back, okay? The way back is always, what is always the way back? And yes, Jesus is the way, okay? But other than that, for human beings, what is the way back? It begins with an R. Yes, repentance is always the way back. There's no evidence of that in Adam and Hava, Adam and Eve. There's no evidence of it. There's no evidence that Adam went, you know what, you're right. Wow, I see what I did. No, what did he do? He said, that woman, my Edzer Kenegdo that you made for me, she screwed it all up. Okay? I listened to her voice. And what does the woman do? The woman goes, you know what, you're right, honey. The snake that you made, by the way, God, Did it, okay? Well, here they are. So now what are we going to do? Out you go. Okay, the door is always there, and it has always been there for repentance. So, okay. Okay, we're going to go to our Zoom audience, and then we're going to go back to Tom. Arla, is that you?
Yes, it is. I don't have a question per se. I'm just really, really liking this class format. I'm getting a lot more out of it. This is awesome.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Arla. Take Arla's name and number and give her an award. I'm just kidding. Pretending I'm on TV. Yes, Tom. Yes. Yes. No. Why? Is there a reason that you thought that? Oh, no, no, no. No, the rabbis were teachers, and it didn't. There were. It didn't matter what party you belonged to. You could be a rabbi if you had people that you were teaching. You could be a rabbi. Oh yeah, yes, but I think most rabbis were Pharisees. Yep, because that was a. It was like being a Democrat. It was a party, that you in a way of life. David, was that your hand? Right. That's right. The snake said nothing. That's good. That's really good. Yeah. Dana? Yep. Right. By years? Go ahead. No, no, it isn't. Yep. Yes. Yes. Well, so I think you're right, and I think I would add that it's the main element of what he was as the fulfillment of it all, as long as we don't leave out the element of, look, when you read in the word that this is how Yehovah wants you to live, look at me and this is how you do it. Okay, that's the element. But the great element is exactly what Dana was bringing up by Yeshua's death and resurrection. Always add that in, all right? And the giving of the Ruach on Shavuot. Okay, all right? That was just as much an element of the whole fulfillment, okay? But he's not done yet, right? I mean, we got one more to go. We've got the the one we just did, Sukkot. We have that one left that we're waiting for him to come again, right? All that. So, yeah, good. Okay. Final. Okay. All right, go ahead. Yeah. Well, that's the idea in Judaism. Okay, that Moses is the one who wrote down the words of the whole Torah, known as the books of Moses. That's what the Jews have believed from forever, unless you're a liberal Jew. Liberal Jews don't believe that any of it is real. Correct. Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah, by word of mouth. Right. I don't know. There's the see where about when you get written language is about when Moses went up the mountain on earth. I mean, all civilizations go back to that 100 years ish, 500 maybe, within Moses going up the mountain. You have like the birth of written language. Okay, and the most recent things that I've read is that what Yehovah gave Moses was not only the Torah, but he gave him written language. He gave him the alphabet. He gave him the letters. He gave them so that the Hebrews would be literate. Okay? So they would learn how to read. So all of this that was written down now by Moses would be able to be read and handed on generation after generation after generation. Because when they were in Egypt, they forgot. So they had to be reminded of who they were because they lost a lot of their stories when they were in Egypt. Well, why? In order to get the city ordinance. No. No, you got to realize when people are an oral culture, they have abilities that we don't have because we write and we read. Okay? So they have abilities to memorize words that are spoken. And the idea with Noah is God spoke to him. Okay? So you have him out there and he's like, all right, I got wood. How much wood am I going to need? Well, you're going to build it this big by this big, whatever it was and whatever word they used. So there's no evidence of anything written earlier. Correct. No letters, no alphabet. That's right. David. That's right. Except now we know that we want to memorize, so we can. Yep. But yes. Yep. Yep. Okay, you guys, it's getting late. You good? Did you have one question, Debbie? Go ahead. Right. That's right. Yes, you're right. Okay, we always had these storytellers. Now, when I mentioned that then when they went to Egypt, they forgot, I don't mean they forgot everything. I don't mean it's like, ooh, we don't know anything, okay? We're not Hebrews anymore. No. What I mean is that they adopted ideas of Egypt, which is obvious when you get them out in the wilderness, because then they're like, we want to go back to Egypt. So, all right. May you be blessed from Yehovah above, and have a great rest of your week. And I hope to see you on Friday night. Goodbye. Zoom audience, we are signing off. Blessings to all of you. Hey, there's John Rogers. You want to come say hi?